Hi, welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's Thursday, November the 3rd, and like every Thursday, I'm joined by my co-host here. He's a guest, but he's also a co-host, Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, one of the finer handicappers you'll find anywhere, coming from a great website in Doc Sports, who's been around for 51 years, folks. Longevity speaks volumes. Doug, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Ross, I'm doing very well. And I know everybody loves the weather reports here, so I have one. Okay, so this is a good one. This is a good one, though. If today does not reach 62 degrees, okay, for the high, that would be the coldest ever day on November 3rd in Phoenix. And
Wow.
that's likely to happen.
That's a
So we,
catastrophe. Here I am
it
worrying about a
is.
nuclear war, and 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 you got record low temperatures of
I
62.
mean, see,
Yeah.
Ross, I like that. You figured it out. Okay. You have to have your priorities in
Yeah.
order to live your life properly.
For
So
what it's
I,
worth,
I, I
Doug.
congratulate you for that. Well
What?
done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Your flattery is overwhelming. And also,
Yes.
Doug, I must say, okay, I have to share this since we're talking about weather. In Western New York tomorrow, high of 72, my friend. High of
There you go. You're
70
going to
on
beat us both
Sunday.
days for sure.
Hey, come on, man. When it's warmer in Western New York than Arizona uh, in November,
Yes.
something global warming. I don't know, man. Anyway, let's not get political.
No, no,
We're
no.
talking.
I'm done with it.
We're talking NFL today. We have two NFL free picks for you on Sunday's card. I have a total in the Bills and Jets game. In case you're wondering, I'm going to cover the Bills, but no, I'm not going homer on you, Doug. And also, Doug is going to be he's going to be previewing his favorite team, the Green Bay Packers, against those Detroit Lions. But before we get to that, Doug, some interesting, actually, I shouldn't say interesting, I would say surprising the amount of trades we see at the NFL trade deadline. Now, it's not like Major League Baseball where we see a plethora of trades at the trade deadline. Usually, the NFL trade deadline is fairly quiet. There was 8 significant trades at the trade deadline. Any thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, well, I think it's just, I don't know if it's what the Rams did last year, but I believe the Rams, what they did had an impact going into this year as to where, you make a decision as an organization that you're going to go all in some cases and you go for it. Okay.
Yeah.
And, or if there's other instances, maybe you're making trades because you got guys that, you can't sign, you're not going to sign, you don't want to sign. So you just go on from there. So, I mean, I give Miami a lot of credit. I mean, they
Yeah.
started off, before the season by getting Tyreek Hill, okay, which made a big difference, in their offense. Now they're going, Bradley Chubb, Jeff Wilson, picked those two guys up. Now, I mean, you could make the case, and it wouldn't be hard at all. I mean, it is Miami even really in the same stratosphere as Buffalo and Kansas City in the AFC? No, they're not. But the thing is, from their perspective, that I don't disagree with, is that if on November the 1st, or in this case November the 3rd, right now, a year ago, who had Cincinnati going the Super Bowl?
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
so I mean, things could happen,
Yeah.
and you get one shot at it with these teams, and who knows? You got a chance. So I congratulate them for what they did. I thought it was a smart move by Minnesota picking up Hawkinson, the tight end from Detroit, after they lost Irv Smith. I mean, so they're just rolling right with. I don't think Minnesota's necessarily that good, but I mean, they're 6-1. It's hard to argue with their record,
Well,
and
I
they have a
think
great offense.
if I could just interject
Sure,
for a
absolutely.
second, yeah, I think Minnesota's offense is that good. I really do.
Yes.
You have great skill position players on the outside, and Thielen and Justin Jefferson. Now you add in an all-pro tight end and T.J. Hawkinson, who you wonder why Detroit hasn't had success. They trade an all-pro tight end within their own division. Well, whatever. But their defense is suspect. In terms of Miami, I agree with you. I applaud them for what they've done to upgrade the roster, not only in the offseason, but at the trade deadline. No, they're not in the same stratosphere with Kansas City and Buffalo. but they're a lot closer to most of the other teams in the AFC, if that makes sense. And we saw in week 3, they beat Buffalo. I mean, so yes, they were outgained by nearly 300 yards in that game, and Buffalo did everything they could to beat themselves. But what I'm trying to say, that's a good enough team. That roster is good enough that if Kansas City or Buffalo walks into a playoff game with them and has an off day, they're good enough to beat them,
Yep.
and they've proven that. So we'll see. Yeah, again, you make a great example of what the Rams did last year with getting Von Miller at the trade deadline. Look how he's panning out for Buffalo this year as an offseason free agent acquisition. He's got, I believe, 6 sacks in the first 7 games, numerous pressures on a defense that, as good as they were, lacked a pass rush. The Cincinnati Bengals, at the midpoint of last year, they were a nice story. They weren't the same old bungles. They were winning games. Their quarterback showed all kinds of future stardom, if not shown stardom during that season. And they had some dangerous guys on the outside, and Jamari Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. And at that time, they had a pretty good tight end. And their defense was solid, not great, but their offensive line, somehow they got to the Super Bowl with that offensive line. So you never know. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I also commend your Buffalo Bills for picking up that safety. Okay. I
Yeah.
thought that was really a wise move as well. I mean, they got some problems there. They got some depth issues. So,
Yeah.
and it's of somebody that, that knows the
Knows the
system as a former
defense.
player.
Yes. Dean Marlowe, you're referring to.
Yes.
Jordan Poyer has been ruled out. I don't know what the results of the MRI were or what they came back as on his elbow, but who knows what the future is there with him. They've already lost Micah Hyde for the season.
Yep.
Those are 2 all pros. Okay. Now, having said that, the guys who filled in have done a pretty darn good job. But beyond them, now you're really testing the quality depth they have, because now their quality depth's already been tested, Doug. The 2 backup safeties are playing and playing well. What happens if something happens to them? Well, at least you got a guy with a small learning curve in Dean Marlowe coming into that defense. And then you pick up a guy like Nyheim Hines. You trade Zach Moss away. Just didn't fit into their system. Really never lived up to expectations as a 2nd-round pick. And Hines gives you a lot of diversity in the backfield. He can catch balls out of the backfield. He's averaging over 4 yards per carry in his career. He can return punts. He's averaging 11 yards per punt return. He's returned 2 for a touchdown in his career, meaning punt returns. So, it's unheralded moves. It's not the big splash moves you've seen with other teams, but they really didn't need to. I mean, I got a feeling you're going to see in the next couple of weeks Odell Beckham get signed in Buffalo as well. We'll see.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. If the numbers are right and he's willing to sign a 1-year or 2-year prove-it contract, I think they can get that deal done. And he's expressed interest in going there, on top of Von Miller being on his behind to come to Buffalo. So we'll see,
Yeah.
But I mean, any other trades of note that you see being impactful?
Well, I don't know that necessarily impactful. I guess the 2 things that surprised me were the trades that were, or the teams that did not do things, which was number 1, the Green Bay Packers not getting a receiver of any kind. And then even also the Houston Texans not moving. They had 2 or 3 veteran players that were expected to be traded and were, according to reports, more or less told that was likely to happen, and they didn't do anything. Okay. And in particular, the player that seems like the fit for the Packers and Houston was Brandon Cooks. Now, I don't know what Houston wanted, but it doesn't make sense. Now, do I really think the Packers are going to be the same team as they've been the last 3 years? No, they're not. Okay, that's pretty obvious. But still, I mean, when you do nothing, that sends a message also to the locker room, okay, about what's going on. So, so that to me was the bigger surprise.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to get rid of guys and you're only getting a 5th rounder or 6th rounder in return, who knows? I don't know. We don't know the specifics of what went on, but I do know that that tells me that Green Bay really feels they're not good enough right now, and they're not willing to part with any draft choices and jeopardize their future, because you know darn well, past Green Bay teams didn't have this issue with all the success they've had over the last 2 decades. And I do think Brandon Cooks would have been a great fit with Green Bay. I
Yep.
mean, if you like Randall Cobb, he's on an IR right now. You got to make a stronger case for Brandon Cooks because he's been more productive in recent years with a bad
Yep.
team, right? So
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, it's easy to play general manager, Doug, but there's a lot more that goes into it than just because it's your favorite team, they owe you a trade kind of thing.
Right. Right.
You're going to be the same guy who complains that you gave away a second or third rounder to try to win today. If you're going to try to win today, you got to see yourself as a legitimate contender to win the Super Bowl. And to me, Green Bay standing pat, that's what it tells me. They don't think they're good enough. And adding even Brandon Cooks is not going to put them over the top. And it's very likely they're not even going to come close to overtaking Minnesota in that division right now, since they're 3 games behind already, right? 3? Is it 3?
Yeah, I'm more than, yeah. Well, actually, close. They've I think it's closer to 4. And yeah, I mean they're even right now they're unlikely even to make the playoffs unless they have unless they get hot.
Yeah.
So yeah,
right
kind
now
of their
that lead
situation.
looks insurmountable, based on
Yeah, oh
Green
yeah,
Bay's
Minnesota's
run.
in. I mean, unless they literally fall apart. I mean,
But
that's the only.
Minnesota's a team to watch in the NFC. Let me preface that. I think that San Francisco is going to be a team that's going to make hay down the stretch because their defense, everybody's talking about Christian McCaffrey, and rightfully so. He had a great game last week in his first really full duty with the 49ers. But that defense in San Fran is absolutely terrific, Doug.
Yeah, the one weakness is, of course, the secondary, and and Kansas City exposed that. Not everybody has the weapons to expose
Well,
that.
Minnesota
But
does,
to your
right?
right, Minnesota does. And the other thing too, if Minnesota, if they can find some continuity on defense, all of a sudden that becomes a better team. And let's face it, that's basically what happened to Cincinnati last year. I mean, Cincinnati's defense wasn't great, but they got better as the year went along. They created turnovers, and lo and behold, they're in the Super Bowl.
Turnovers will make up for a lot of defensive deficiencies.
Yes.
And, when you got, like I said, when you got the skilled players on the outside and a real good running back like Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow at quarterback, that helps a lot too. I picked them to be a disappointing team this year in terms of what the expectations were after last year. I stick by that, but in that division, they still may win it, because Baltimore isn't something that, look, Cleveland, I thought would have been a force early on. They've proven that's probably not going to be the case. And secondly, the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, they're not the Baltimore Ravens defense to which, Ray Lewis is gone, folks. Ed Reed is gone. This defense is very vulnerable. And especially, and I'll stick by my guns. I said it 2 years ago, and I'll say it today. Baltimore is a great team with the lead because they could run the ball effectively. They have a quarterback that's mobile and can extend plays. But Lamar Jackson has yet to prove to me that he has the ability to bring a team back from a couple touchdown deficit and win a game, especially late. So we'll see. I mean, I may eat my words, but I'm going to stick to my guns there. All right, since we got that all off our chest, Doug, Dangerous Doug, they call him in the sports book circles. We just call him Doug here in the winner's circle. And Doug is going to take us through the Detroit and Green Bay game and give us a free pick.
And the key thing there, Dangerous has a lot of possibilities. So, but we'll go beyond that. So, all right. So the Packers are playing at Detroit. Green Bay's a 3.5-point road favorite as we speak. And to me, that's a fascinating line for a team that's lost 4 in a row and pretty much is going nowhere. I don't normally put a lot of stock into betting, the sides that people are on, but for whatever reason, I was curious to know that for doing this video. And it was interesting to me that 70% of the bets placed at this time were on the Packers, but 55% of the money was on Detroit. Take that for what it's worth from that standpoint. Now, as far as the game, Detroit comes in, great offense, 4th in the NFL in yardage, but it's not particularly efficient. they're only in terms of I'm sorry, they're fourth in scoring. Excuse me,
Yeah.
they're fourth in scoring. But in terms of the efficiency, they're only 20th in points per yardage. So they move the ball, they do score, but it's not always. They should be able to score more. I guess that's my basic point. Defensively, oh boy, what a bad team this is. If Dan Campbell is fired at the end of next year, okay, the reason will be he never figured out the defense. Right now, they're last in points allowed. They're last in total defense. Now, everyone assumed the Green Bay front office and everyone else that when Aaron Rodgers was there, they didn't, they could get by without Devontae Adams. Well, guess what? That was dead wrong. And they also found out that their offensive line, they missed on it. Okay. So Aaron Rodgers is having to throw to receivers that don't know how to get open well or to run proper routes.
How about
And he
not
has no
lining up
time.
well, Doug?
What's that?
Let's start with lining up well. I mean, we
Right.
saw
Yeah.
that last Sunday night. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to throw that in there.
Oh yeah, no. So I mean, all kinds of problems, from that standpoint. However, to me, the biggest disappointment of this team is the defense. Okay, uh, they're just not very good, and they're 28th against the run. Kenny Clark, in particular, is having a lousy year. Those defensive ends, nobody knows their name because they don't make any plays. Okay, so simple as that. Now, in this one, I look for a big effort from Detroit because I think they realize this is a game they can win. Okay, so from that standpoint, and the Packers certainly have looked vulnerable. However, in watching that game, maybe you have a different opinion, Ross, on this one, but I think the Packers actually kind of learned a few things in that game, and I think what they learned is that if they play with more purpose and desire, which they did, especially on defense, and that the receivers also found out that once a play breaks down, if they try and get open, Rodgers will find them. Okay, so those are, I think, some positive things, along with how good the running game looked.
Yeah.
Offensive line for the Packers is no good, but they're no good in pass protection in particular. So in this contest, I'm looking at a hard-fought game, but in the fourth quarter, Detroit's going to make the mistakes like they almost always do to beat itself, and the Packers escape winning by 6 or 7. So I'm going to take the Packers to cover the 3.5, Ross, right here, right now.
So Doug likes Green Bay minus 3.5 over Detroit. And I could tell you that's an objective opinion because I've seen them go against Green Bay in the past
Yep.
too. So
I've done it here.
we'll never be accused of being a homer. Are they our team? Is Buffalo my team and Green Bay is? Yes. Okay. But when push comes to shove, we stay professional, folks. Myself, Doug has no hesitation to go against Green Bay. I will, unless I find a great reason to use Buffalo, and I know it's a sound of sound logic and the data is all there to back it, I will just stay away from Buffalo games because I don't like to worry about is my heart going above my head when making that decision. That's just me. Doug is much better at controlling that environment for himself. So kudos to him. You brought up a very good statistic before I get to my pick in the Buffalo and Jets game. It's the yards per point statistic. And you need, folks, if you don't know what that is, it's real simple. It's exactly the way it comes out. You take the amount of yards that the team gains per game, what their average points per game is, and it equates to an average of how many points or how many yards you gain per point. Boy, easy for me to say. So in any event, something to keep an eye on, folks, because sometimes if you're looking for just the smallest edge, statistics like that could lead you in the right direction. Anyway, let's get to my pick, and we need to move on with our days. As Doug would eloquently say, I got things to do, you got things to do, so let's move on. All right, so the Bills and the Jets, and I am not going to go homer on you, folks, and I'm not going to go homer on you here, Doug. So I'm looking at the total, which is 46.5. Here's the thing. Buffalo, gaudy offensive numbers. Number 1 in total offense. Number 2 in scoring offense. Number 1 in pass offense. And they've allowed the second fewest sacks in the NFL at 11. High-powered offense. Yet, they've gone 6-1 to the under this year. And that includes 5-0 to the under in their last 5 games with a combined average of only 42.4 points per game. Has their offense stopped producing? Obviously not. I just gave you all the statistics. But what gets overlooked a lot is their defense. Number 4 in total yards allowed at less than 300. Number 1 in scoring defense at 14 points per game. What's the strong suit of the Jets right now? Surprising 5-3, coming off a disappointing loss. I get that. But what's kept the Jets in a lot of games, it hasn't been a high-powered offense by any stretch. It's been a solid defense. They're number 11 in scoring defense at 19.9 points per game, number 6 in total defense at a little over 311 yards per game. Okay. Yes, they'll be hard pressed to maintain those numbers or improve upon those numbers this week, but I don't think their offense is capable of moving the ball with any kind of consistency against Buffalo. Now, having said that, Doug brought up Green Bay, how well they ran the ball on Sunday night. And that's a concern because in that 27-17 win by Buffalo, they allowed the Packers to go over 200 yards rushing. Yes, the Jets lost Breece Hall, their number 1 draft choice, who was off to a fantastic start and had star written all over him. He's definitely a franchise running back right now, and he justifies the pick they made on him, how high he went. However, their backups aren't bad. Michael Carter is a good back, and the newly acquired James Robinson is shown that he could produce at the NFL level. As a matter of fact, he's a prior 1,000-yard rusher. So my point being is I see the Jets going run heavy here, trying to stay close, not only using their defense, who's been very good this year, but their running game to keep a potent Buffalo offense off the field. Now, the concern gets if they get down a couple touchdowns and they have to go one-dimensional with Zach Wilson, then we just hope Buffalo wins 40-0. How's that? Anyway, in any event, here's the thing. NFL division road teams with a total of 43-49. Pay attention, Doug. I know you love this stuff. Coming off a home favorite straight-up win in which they failed to cover as a favorite. Buffalo 27-17 last week against Green Bay. Closed as anywhere from a 10.5 to 11-point favorite, depending on where you look. Teams in that situation, division road teams, within that totals parameter of 43-49, and coming off what I just told you, they're coming off 24-2 to the under since 2011. That's good for 92.3%. I'm going Buffalo in the Jets under 47.5, Doug.
I like it.
All right.
I like it. So let's see what we can do. Now, I know we're running short on time, so I'm going to take the ball right now and I'm going to run with it, okay, and let everybody know what I'm all about, okay, and stuff like that. Many people already know, but I'll just one last time. It's Doug Upstone at DocSports.com. So what do I got coming up this weekend? Well, if we have baseball, I'll have some of that. I actually have a play for Game 5 tonight, so that's in the works. As I mentioned, NBA has been going strong and continues to, so that's going to be fun. That's going to have somewhere between 8 and 10 plays for football. Got a couple of best bets already lined up for Saturday and Sunday. A 7-unit on Saturday and a 6-unit on Sunday. So looking forward to a strong card, and made some adjustments this week, so I'm excited about that. And then the last thing, Breeders' Cup. Okay, this weekend and Saturday in particular, I'm going to have 6 different picks of 6 races that are all the $2 million or higher races on Saturday, which is races 6 through 11. And you know my track record on horse betting and stuff like that. And so I even have one for Ross, a 3 to 5 favorite Flight Line. So that's in the classic. So right. You're not going to make anybody, Ross, but you'll get yourself a winner. So keep that in mind. So that's everything I got going this weekend.
Sounds like some guys in our sports betting industry, giving out these 180 and 190 favorites in football, trying to steal winners, man. I'm telling you. Again, Doug Upstone at DocSports.com, folks. And he's not only a great handicapper, he's also a weatherman. And what else am I missing? He's a rock and roller.
Author?
Yeah,
author?
An author. Yep, exactly. So, and he's a great husband and great father. And that's the most important two of the whole bunch. And myself, you could find me at rbwins.com. That's rbwins.com. That's my personal site. All my paid selections are listed right there. My daily packages, single game and multi-game daily packages guaranteed. If you don't win, you don't make a profit, I will credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price, and you could use that any which way you like. toward future purchases. Folks, 30-21 in the NFL to date. That's 59%. NFL primetime plays, 14-6 this year. That's Monday, Sunday, and Thursday night games. And what am I missing? College football, 7-3 over the last 2 weeks. NBA had a winner last night in the NBA, 42-29, dating back to last year with my last 71, good for 59%. And NHL, I'm still at 2-1. I haven't released anything in the NHL other than what I've already done. And if those of you who follow me for a while, that's why I don't have NHL subscription plans, because I really don't ramp it up in the NHL to the playoffs. For Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, I'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Take care and God bless, folks.